All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. Heading out in the weeds a little bit here, talking about Boston and what's been going on up there. In the first hour, we talked a little bit about search and seizure and entry to the homes, those sorts of things. Now we're taking your calls. Tom, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'd just like to take a moment. You were talking about the pro-life movement extremists. I've been involved in the pro-life movement for well over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many people from many denominations. And our main goal is respect for life at all stages. And I don't know one person that would condone hurting anyone or taking a life in any way, shape, or form. And I believe that 99, probably 0.9% of all pro-life people feel the same way.
Have you ever seen the Army of God website where they honor Scott Roeder for killing George Tiller? And they honor Eric Rudolph, and you can send emails to those guys, and it's run by some pro-life activists?
Well, I don't really know that they can call themselves pro-life activists because I think Dr. Tiller was heinous, and I think his murder was heinous. I think that in any case, it was all bad.
Right, and the reason I bring this up is, and I hope you understand this is where the other caller wasn't quite listening to me.
Right.
I was saying, you, as a pro-life person, for instance, cannot give any tolerance to any member of your organization that would do anything radical.
That's absolutely correct.
And no Muslim or Islamist should give any comfort to anybody in their organization who would do anything radical. No Christian, no Hare Krishna, no Buddhist, no secular atheist should give any aid or comfort to anybody who does anything radical or illegal or harmful or hateful to other people. And that was my point. And so I would just point out, for instance, that Eric Rudolph should have, the day he did this, instead of having this Reverend Spitz in Virginia creating the Army of God website to honor him and other people who kill abortion doctors or bomb clinics, that should not be tolerated. And those people should be marginalized and not given support. But unfortunately, they are. So I talk about the IRA. It's not active as much anymore, but back in the day, a lot of Irish Catholics in New York and other areas around our country would send money to help fund a extremist group so they could bomb Protestants, right? So every time somebody sent those dollars, they were aiding and abetting that. And so what I say to the Muslim world is, you can't aid the Chechen rebels. We've got these rich Saudi princes that would never once lift a finger against you or me, but they got no problem writing a $50,000 check to somebody who would drop a bomb on us. And that's the tolerance we can't. And that's my whole point on that. And I didn't mean to single out the pro-life movement. I was pointing out that the religious fringes, see, they're sort of like a spectrum. So somewhere along the line, people go, well, this guy did that, and it's bad, but his motive was good, so I'm still going to support that organization. And so these radicals, they almost have a patina of being more pious than us.
Right, but this is the problem with, like, the pro-life movement. We don't get much press. 500,000 people show up in Washington, no press. Somebody kills another doctor, they get more press. Therefore, people think that we're a little bit on the wacky side, which we're really not.
Right.
Like I said, like 99.9% of us aren't.
And
I can guarantee that.
I do have to say, I always get a kick out of people that are pro-life and pro-death penalty. I'm not really sure you can be both.
Actually, I'm not in favor of the death penalty myself, but that was something that I had to be guided to by the Lord when I first started getting involved with the pro-life movement.
Right.
So,
I always think that the Catholic religion to me is always the most intellectually consistent on that. They basically just say life is sacred and so man shouldn't take it.
That's correct. I'm a Catholic, by the way. A Catholic Christian, but okay.
All right.
I agree with you.
All right, boss. Well, thanks. I hope I want to clarify that. I'm glad you called in.
Right. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Take care.
Have a great day.
All right. You too. 540-0580. Jay, you're on with Carl Rominger.
Yeah, is there such a thing as a Catholic non-Christian? I don't know. Carl, actually, the guy before the break kind of got me a little hot. I was going to ask something else because, again, there's that situation, and I'm not from this area, and I don't know if it was this way up in the Buffalo area, the Bible Belt, and this is just, really, our religion's right and everybody else is wrong. And I don't necessarily know that Islam as a rule or as a philosophy promotes violence. I think it started in an area of the world where violence was. I mean, you could take the Christians and the Crusades, and that's
right.
Certainly an Inquisition, so forth and so on. And I don't understand. I've kind of sworn off all religion. Maybe that's.
Well, but, the Crusades is always one of my favorite topics, only because the idea of religion is. The idea of religion, most people view religion as it is now, as they assume that's how it's always been. So if you want to talk about extreme violence, let's just talk about when the Spaniards pushed the Moors out of Spain. They burnt people at the stake, they did forced conversions, and they literally drove the Islamists from the peninsula, right?
Yep.
In a horrid way, in the name of God. And in fact, if you ever read the Brothers Karamazov, there's a vignette in there called The Grand Inquisitor, where Jesus comes back, and the Grand Inquisitor, who's busy having pushed all the Moors out and happily ruling Spain at that point, is saying, we don't really need you anymore.
Well,
we've solved it.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to bring up, though, is, and I know, of course, that you guys are often, the Second Amendment, for instance, you're against anything that you think would cause any ground to rattle in that one. And I guess I feel the same way about the legal searches and seizures or just go into houses looking for people. I tend to think those constitutional rights should be paramount. They should be inviolate. They should never be able to be suspended. I know that's difficult in today's world.
But the Fourth Amendment, just so we're clear, is a balancing test. And there is something called the public safety exception, well established. So nothing happened in Boston that strikes me as patently unconstitutional. And to the credit of the government, as soon as possible, they released the restrictions. They actually released the restrictions before they found the guy. That's how that guy got out to his boat, to see the blood and things amiss. So I'm not sure, and I agree they should be involved.
I tend to think nowadays with our adoration of people in uniform, and frankly we do have it, and I understand it, and there's nothing wrong with it. Adoration's a little much, so if somebody comes in a military uniform or a police uniform, I don't think they should just be given, carte blanche. I
always find it fascinating when we're talking to prospective jurors and they say, well, I just assume that a police officer, because of their job, is more truthful. And I always want to be like, there's nothing different about a police officer than your mechanic, than your lawyer, than any other professional or person you deal with. They're all human. They're all subject to the same memory issues. They're all subject to the same biases. They're all likely to commit crimes and do things almost at exactly the same rate. I've represented police officers in perjury cases and homicide cases, and I mean represented them as the perpetrator. And so there's nothing special about a military person or a police officer that just makes them magically better than anybody else. On the other hand, there is certainly, for serving the country and putting yourself in harm's way, and for first responders who put themselves in danger every day, a certain credit they should get.
Of course. We're not questioning that. I just don't like when you start talking about things like, and of course Lincoln did it, suspending habeas corpus and all that other kind of stuff. It makes me a little bit nervous.
So let's ask this question. What had to happen back then for a guy like Abraham Lincoln to do that? The entire country was at war, right? We had states in insurrection. We had people shooting each other dead in the streets. We had, like they say, brother shooting brother. But that had all been going on for a little while. In other words, that suspension of the writ of habeas corpus and the almost martial law imposed by Abraham Lincoln were not in response to like two crazy guys who blew up a finish line. It was not in response to some people on the run, and it was not in response to one minor terrorist attack. It was in response to a full-blown rebellion. So maybe our needle has moved.
Well, I mean, look at you're probably too young. You're certainly too young to remember the mid-'60s when maybe Whitman went up to the tower and shot 16 or 17 people.
I do not remember it, but I saw the special
point
about
it. Of course, because it wasn't tied up in politics those days. I mean, look how much coverage every little thing gets today.
Correct.
They're making up stuff just to fill the airwaves.
They got to fill the airwaves. I got to go to break talking about filling the airwaves. Thanks, Jay.
Bye.
Oh, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Bill, what's going on?
Hi, Carl. Yeah, I don't want to get into a big, waste your time with a big historical discussion about the Chechens, but you had a caller earlier who was defending the Russians, and one thing I wanted to say in regard to that was that part of the world, the Caucasus Mountain area, which has about 60 different nationalities, took the Imperial Russians about 40 years to conquer, because all those tribal people, including the Chechens, and I'd actually go so far as to say especially the Chechens, resisted them to the last breath, and the Russian brutality towards them was unbelievable. And it calmed down for a while after there was a peace concluded back in the 1860s, but then it ramped up to an unbelievable degree under the Soviet Union. And Stalin deported nearly all of the Chechens in Central Asia in 1942, 400,000 people, 1 hour to take whatever belongings you could gather up and get on the cattle cars for like a week-long ride to Central Asia. So they have enormously good reasons to hate the Russians. Now, here's my point. We have low-level, clandestinely, no fanfare for obvious reasons, been supporting all the separatist people within the former Soviet Union and Russia for quite some time, and in particular the Chechens. And the thing that makes me very suspicious of this whole thing is there's a couple of things. One is the Chechens really have no reason to attack Americans. None. We're helping them. And the other thing that nobody has considered or brought up, the older brother's wife was a Christian. Now, I've heard quite a few are practicing Christian. And I've heard quite a few things about the family and so forth, and there's no indication that these boys had any kind of fanatic beliefs of any kind, religious or otherwise. They were very well integrated into their community and their schools. And, it just doesn't add up. The whole scenario just doesn't add up. Frankly, I think they were part of a drill that went wrong. I don't know what was going on, but I do not think they were some kind of fanatics. Now, they do say the father was on a terrorist watch list. That family had been one of the ones deported to Central Asia. They came from Kyrgyzstan to the U.S., and the father, supposedly nursed a great hatred for the Russians. He did go back to Chechnya for a short time and then decided, he wanted out of there. So that's when they came here. But again, it just doesn't add up. If you knew the history and understood the people, it doesn't make sense. And what bothers me the most about this, I hear all this talk, as usual, of, the NDAA and, no reading of rights and this and that and the other thing. I just see all this stuff as more excuse to ramp up the surveillance state and to ramp up the suspension of rights for all of us.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying with Jay earlier, is it's interesting what got President Lincoln roused up enough to even think about martial law and suspending the writ of habeas corpus would be many orders of magnitude greater than what we've seen here. And yet here we're already, remember after 9/11 we gave up a bout of rights.
Yes.
We now still allow all kinds of things to happen which would be seemingly anti-American, all in the name of safety. And you're right.
They're anti-American. Well, they are, and it's just very funny how whenever certain authoritarian type political leaders, let's call them, every time they want to ramp up some kind of suspension of rights, like the gun stuff and what have you, there's always some incident that happens to justify it.
Yeah, and now, see, I'm not one of the people that would say that they create these incidences. Instead, I believe that a very smart, so if you watched, I don't know if anybody watched House of Cards on Netflix. It's a great series that's only available there. But at one point, there's a teacher strike going on, and he wants to embarrass them. So his theory is he waits until a kid gets killed in a gang stray bullet from a gang fight, and then points out that if the kid had been in school and the teachers weren't striking, this kid wouldn't be dead. Now, the teachers have nothing to do with the death of this kid, right? So it's just pure politics. But it plays really well, and it breaks the strike.
Right.
But they're waiting. So in other words, he's just waiting for that to happen and searching and combing the news reports until they can find one that they can say happened during school hours with a child killed by a stray bullet. So a good politician, a good dictator, a good authoritative regime, a good Leviathan, waits for the right moments and uses its power to shape and build the story, I think. So that's what I really believe you see. Remember what the old advisor used to say, who's the Rahm Emanuel said, let no good crisis go unwasted.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing of it is, I wouldn't have any problem with whatever plan of prosecution they have, provided it's open, public, and we get to hear the testimony.
Public defender, the federal public defender in Boston, is asking to represent this guy.
Right. Well, let's hope they don't send him to Guantanamo, because I know they got people there for 11 years now that have never even had a trial.
Right.
And that's about as un-American as anything I can think of.
I agree 100% with that. All right, my friend.
Thanks.
Thank you. 540-0580. Carmen, you have a comment.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I wanted to make a comment. First of all, the God of the Bible, Jehovah, or Jesus Nazareth, Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Shalom, El Shaddai, all is the same God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Jesus came to save the humanity. The Muslim religion first is a false religion. Okay? The one that doesn't read the Quran don't know. So those that say the Muslim religion is pacific, they are not right. It's just because they don't read the Quran and they don't practice the Muslim religion. So it's not, that's in the Quran. Kill the infidel. So I'm sorry, but people have to read and know more about the Muslim religion. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you. 540-0580. Bill, you're on the air.
Hey, how's it going, Carl?
Good.
Hey, isn't it a shame that you don't know? You have to entertain the conspiracy thoughts. I know people think that you're crazy when you listen to that, but you have to entertain them. And look at the Bin Laden thing. I mean, that guy just all of a sudden got thrown off the side of a boat, and that was it. I just thought that was weird. I mean, I didn't even really think about it until that point. I just thought that was strange that all of a sudden he's dead. He's thrown off the side of the boat into the water, and that's the end of it.
Right.
And but I wanted to ask you. I really see a one-world government coming, and I know there's been numerous books about it, and they don't even hide it anymore when they talk about it. Do you really see that coming very soon? Do you believe that is the case or not? That's all I'm going to say to you, and let you answer.
Well, here's the answer. It's probably inevitable that someday we would have one-world government because it's going to be possible to govern on that level. And number two, our problems may eventually rise. Let's pretend it's coast to coast here, right? We may eventually have contact with some alien civilization or something, and then you probably need a structure to represent the world proper, right?
You are living in coast to coast.
So one never knows these things.
That was not the answer I expected. I thank you for breaking the monotony of my day.
So if you think,
all right,
buddy, take care.
I gotta go.
He's gonna laugh his butt off. Well, the answer there though is seriously now. If you watch Torchwood, you'll understand all this. The idea is, if you have an alien race you have to have contact with, or you have to defend the Earth, you're going to have some sort of structure in place. But that doesn't mean you can't still have autonomous world governments. And right now we sort of have that, which is the United Nations, although frankly, United Nations resolutions and certain courts we as the United States don't make binding on us. But if you've noticed, we've dragged people out of other places before. And I'm sure sometime in our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes, some U.S. president or person is going to be brought to, quote, a tribunal because of, quote, war crimes or some other acts. Remember, they're not war crimes when you win and you have the power to keep the other guys from arresting you. They're war crimes when you lose or when the other guy has sufficient power or enough time's gone by. So think of all the poor South American dictators and Croatian and the old Bosnian situation over there, Herzegovina, where they've drugged these guys out and into world courts, and then all the poor African dictators that have been drugged into world courts. That doesn't happen to the president of United States and the premier of China, right? But that's right now. Who knows in the future? So I don't know where the world's really headed. All I can tell you is that as computing power gets more powerful, as communication gets faster, and as travel gets more reliable, and everything gets more interconnected, the economic scale of things will probably eventually force more enforceable and stronger ties between the various countries. So that's probably where we're headed in the long run. 540-0580 is the talk line number. I want to remind you guys, I am going over right after this show at 3 o'clock to Harrisburg Beer and Cigar for a CAO La Travita wrapped-up tour with Rick Rodriguez. That's today, again, from 3 to 7. That's over on Union Deposit Road, 3842, in the plaza over there, right off 81. So I want to see you guys over there. We'll smoke some cigars. They're going to have a lot of cool stuff. If you have any questions, you can call them over there at 541-1341. That's 541-1341. And don't forget to stop in Harrisburg Beer and Cigars anytime and tell them Carl sent you. I want to get the word back that they can butter me up with beer. In fact, they gave me some Sam Adams Double Bock and some Yingling Bock, both really good. I may try something else while I'm over there today. One never knows. Also, May 9th, I'm going to be down speaking to Franklin County 912 Patriots on gun rights. I also just heard, I was at that NRA function last week, and the Harrisburg Hunters and Anglers are talking about having me back in September to talk about gun laws there as well. But if you want to come to Chambersburg, it's the Franklin Fire Company, 158 West King Street, Chambersburg, May 9th at 7 p.m. And, of course, I'm going to the Women's Expo in Lancaster County, May 18th from 9 a.m. Till showtime. And looking forward to that. I'll be down there with Mark, Virginia Samiris Financial Partners, and I'm sure we'll have a good old time. 540-0580. When we come back from the break, we'll talk to Eric. So they're saying they've not read the Miranda warnings yet to this terrorist. And there is authority for that, by the way. I know people were wanting to talk about this, too. And so in 1980s, there was a case. It's New York versus Quarles. Some guy from Queens with criminal gun possession. When they found him, they asked him where the gun was, and he gestured towards some place where they found the revolver. And he got it suppressed because he was in cuffs. He was taken into custody, and he wasn't Mirandized, so his statement led to the fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning he has a statement, he made a response, and that's how they found the gun they were going to use to prosecute him. So he got the gun thrown out from prosecution because it was subsequent to Miranda. The United States Supreme Court in 84 came out and said, no, there's a public safety exception. And that meant that he didn't have to have his Miranda read to them. The difference in Quarles, though, is if you think about it, they're arresting the guy on the scene. Where's the gun? He points to where the gun is, and they take the gun. Here, all danger is off, so to speak. You know, this guy's not near a gun. There's no issues, or maybe there is. Who else you're working with? Where are your bombs? So the flexibility under the Quarles analysis is going to be important. So it may be possible that much of what he's saying will be admissible against him someday, or it might not. That will be a hotly litigated issue. So pay attention to that one. 540-0580. Eric, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Hey, this is maybe a unique kind of question.
We get a lot of those around here.
I'd like to maybe start a group of like-minded people that would be willing to work together that when things like this kind of happen, and I don't mean terrorist kind of stuff, but just say they come to someone's house to take their firearms. They go to someone's house because they think they've done something. Today with the media, like you said, with the communications being so quick, I'm not saying violent people or vigilantism or anything, but if people were able to show up and bear witness to what was going on, so to speak, so that if there is violations of our rights, that it can be, say, documented by people and not just, the cop said this and the cop said that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it almost be like a group of people that would instantaneously, hey, there's something going on at this address. Let's hurry on down there and bring your video camera. You know what I mean? That's like part of the amendment was part of your rights are you are able to assemble.
Well,
like that. Could we do that? Could that be?
Well, here's a couple thoughts. First of all, obviously, we all hope that people's rights are going to be respected by law enforcement. But if they don't, the question then becomes, do you go quietly or do you behave yourself, right? And then the question becomes, will you get effective judicial review later if law enforcement does do things illegally?
Well, I don't know what the person that was, they go to somebody's house. I don't know how that person's going to react. I mean, that's not up to me. But the people that would be able to go there and observe what happens, and they say, yeah, he was being unruly. They hit him in the head because they had
right.
to.
Well, who are these people? Are they just volunteers? Or are they the ombudsmans? I mean, who do we designate to do this, or just anybody?
Well, I would think it would be not quite like a militia, which I think is, the Second Amendment approves of that. But it would be a group of people that would be.
Well, we have some precedent. We have some precedent in Pennsylvania. We have something called the Pennsylvania Prison Society. It's made up of a bunch of people who basically have tasked themselves with making sure that prisoners are treated humanely.
Okay, that's a group.
And they have through statute and through history gotten some special access to prisons. Which allows them to come in. So if a prison society member comes to a prison, they're supposed to admit them. And the reason they're supposed to do that is this person is trusted because of their membership and because of their involvement with the prison society. And at the same time is supposed to be granted that access so that they can see what's really going on, making sure prisoners not being mistreated or anything. And people may say, well, who cares? But the point is, that was something that sprung up many, many years ago here in Pennsylvania for that very purpose, to sort of police the prison system.
Well, is that something that a group would have to be recognized to do, or can they just do it on their own?
Well, let me ask it this way. Let's suppose that I'm Carl Capone, right? Then I'm going to have my own goons as my, quote, militia. And then when the police show up to shake my place, the 10 big guys that show up who might be armed themselves to, quote, observe might also be wholly owned by me. So I think it has to be somebody with some credentials, but then the question is who credentials them? So if the state police credential them, maybe they're just retired state police officers who've seen no wrong.
But I go back to, aren't we the people, don't we have that?
Here's the, you know what good drug dealers do these days? They have cameras all over their place, right? So that they can see anybody coming and what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. They don't film the insides for obvious reasons. So I guess that would be one answer. I was actually talking with a guy the other day who does camera installations about rigging up a camera system in a car so that we could send it through checkpoints to see what happens.
Not quite feeling what I'm trying to say here, I think.
What are you trying to say? Can somebody come in and observe?
I don't even know if you say come in, but at least stand in the street, and you'd have almost a group of people.
Well, how do they know to get there?
Phone calls. We got internet. We have Facebook. You have all this technology that you spoke of earlier.
Well, right, but have you ever seen how it actually goes down when they do a search warrant? The first thing they do is they put you and your baby's mama and your baby on the sofa. Then they start dumping out everything you own in piles and calling you a scumbag and a dirtbag and telling you that this is all going to go down horribly. Then they take your screaming baby and pull a diaper off, claiming that they think there might be drugs in there. And then they dump an entire thing of flour down your sink, claiming that they thought maybe there'd be something in the flour tin. And then when they don't find anything, they remind you what a scumbag you are and leave. That's how it really goes down, my friend.
So that's a perfect example of why the things I'm saying would be almost necessary.
Right. It should be. Trust me. Actually, I wish somebody would go around and sue all these guys for all the damage they do when they search people's places and don't find anything.
No, I don't have anything against the police for doing a legitimate business, but it seems like when we're talking the Constitution nowadays, it's kind of putting us back burner. Your civil rights are enforced. So if you violate someone's civil rights, that's a total horrible thing. But if you say you're violating my constitutional rights, they laugh at you.
Right.
And that's at least how I see it. And I'm just trying to develop a way that if we found out that on the police scanner they're going down in such and such a place.
Yeah, well, I understand the idea, but then law enforcement says for safety concerns, we just can't let a bunch of guys accumulate around outside that we don't know who they are. They might be the terrorist friends.
They'd have to keep you back at a certain distance then.
But that takes manpower. See, the whole thing kind of gets to be difficult. All right, my friend, I take some more calls.
Okay.
Interesting idea. Doug, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. The talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on?
Hey, I have a quick question about precipice to settle an end in civil court. Does that, when you file as a plaintiff to discontinue, settle, end, does that take anything that's still outstanding within that and void it? Like if there's attorney fee request from the other side or something like that?
Well, if you... are you just discontinuing it, or are it being settled?
Settled.
If it's being settled, then that's the end of it. I mean, as long as you guys have reached a settlement. So, dear Prothonotary, kindly discontinue the above caption action as the parties have reached a settlement.
Right, yes. And the settlement was stated in front of the judge at our status conference, yada, yada. So basically, the other side would not be able to file within that case anything anymore.
Well, if there was a settlement, that's like a compromise and release, meaning everybody's done.
Right, but there was also some outstanding things that the judge had not yet filed an order on. Are those all gone?
Well, no. I mean, well, yes, they are all gone if that's your agreement. Mm-hmm. I'm having a hard time understanding what you. Listen, when I settle a case, here's what it says. We agree to disagree, and I will pay you $422,000 in release for all claims. The end. So the end. It's all done. Nothing more remains. That's why it's called a settlement.
Right. No, I'm just asking that question because when we reached our settlement, there were still some.
Yeah, well, that happens all the time. I mean, the judge could be, but where the judge that makes the case moot.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
That's what I was asking.
So you file that and say, and if you really want to be clever, make sure you put the words with prejudice.
Okay.
Please dear Prothonotary, kindly discontinue the above reference case with prejudice.
And that means nobody can do anything else with it.
It's done.
Okay.
All right, brother.
Thank you. Have a good
540-0580. I got to go to break, and then I'm going to talk to Mike. Welcome back. 540-0580. Mike, I know you've been waiting patiently. What's going on, brother?
How's it going, my friend? How you been?
Excellent.
Man, that second last guy had on John. I mean, like Bob says, my eyes were glazing over.
Yeah, I know. I
don't know if I understood what the heck he was trying to say. So I got a question for you, Carl. It's not exactly a legal question. I just want to get your opinion.
Yeah.
I just have a comment since, we're fresh with this bomber stuff. What is your personal opinion on why those guys did what they did? I mean, I have mine, but what's yours?
Why they did what they did?
Yeah. Do you have one?
My best guess is they were radicalized and they would believe that somehow striking against the U.S. Was going to be part of some plan to get into extra innings in heaven with extra virgins.
Yeah. I agree, absolutely. I did want to comment, and I'm in agreement fully with you. I went out some time ago. I bought a Quran, so I read it pretty good. It does say in there that if Muslims, are not killing Jews, Christians, and infidels, they're not really doing their job. And there's actually kind of a parallel between when you have what they would call a lukewarm Christian versus a Christian who is See, when you're a Christian, you're one of your jobs is you're telling people about Christ. I'm sure you know that. You're evangelizing.
It's an apostolic religion. Got to go out there. Got to go out there and apostolatize. You got to go out there and get more believers.
Well, I wouldn't say proselytize, because if you understand the scripture, you can't really proselytize anybody. That's actually conversion. But our job would be to tell people about Jesus and about how, they could be saved and they don't have to go to hell and all that stuff. You have a set of lukewarm Christians who I would say don't really do that. They're kind of to themselves. They don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers, and they just want to live a quiet life and everything be hunky-dory. Is parallel to the radical, so quote-unquote called the radical Muslim versus the Muslim who is not killing Christians, Jews, and infidels. Those Muslims who do the things that they do, like bombings and, September 11, all that kind of stuff, that sect or those type of Muslims will look at the other Muslims as, you're not really doing your job. Now I only want to bring that point up because I did read the Quran, and that's really where that's where it comes from. And I'm sure like a lot of other people, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about this is a religion of peace and love, because that is not true. If you read the ideology that comes out of the Quran, it's a totalitarian government.
Right.
And they want to infiltrate every country in the world through the political system as well. And you realize that. I just hope more and more people wake up and don't believe the politicians when they try to politic it and come off all nice and hunky-dory that Islam is a religion of peace and love, because the truth is, it's not.
Well, let me explain it this way. Islam's like Christianity. It's got a lot of versions, flavors. It's got a lot of widely divergent beliefs. So theoretically, Mormons are Christians too, right? At least that's what I was told during the last presidential election.
Well, that's what they say, but when you find out what they believe, it's actually not biblical. But go ahead.
Right, but I say, so it's the same thing with Islam, though. You can lump in a lot of religions that a lot of Islamic people would tell you, that's not really Islam. Come on now. Just like some Catholics are convinced that Protestants are going to hell and vice versa. And the Assemblies of God people are absolutely sure that the Baptists have something wrong. The point is, they all come from some source documents and beliefs, but nonetheless, they widely vary in what they would think is appropriate, inappropriate behavior, or what is truly sinful or not. So let me finish this for 1 second.
Yeah,
so not every person who's Islamic wants to blow anybody up or kill anybody, and may even look at portions of the Quran as not literal or as written for a specific time period when everything was at war, and that they're more like parables. And, same way some people believe that God literally created the earth in 7 days, and the Vatican astronomer says the earth is billions of years old.
Right.
My point on all this, though, is yes, we cannot pretend on some false tolerance level that we can't talk about radical Islam. And that's why earlier I was preaching that all radicalism, all extreme radicalism in religion, any tolerance for violent means of enforcing your religion or killing another religion really is not appropriate. And
I agree. And also, when you read the Old Testament, a lot of people will bring this up. They will say, well, what about in the Old Testament when God tells the Israelites to go into the land and kill all of the Canaanites, the Philistines, the women, the children, the this, the that? That was a different time when the Lord told his people to do that, because he knew that if they did not do that, they were going to be infected by their lifestyle and by their false gods. But when you come to the New Testament, you cannot find anywhere in the New Testament where it calls us as Christians to kill anybody if they do not believe in what the Scripture says.
Well, and that's where I say, though, it's the same thing with the Quran. You can pick and choose which verses are still binding or the ones to be followed at this point, and every flavor of the religion is going to give it differently. Last I checked, Jewish people didn't have a New Testament. They were still stuck on the Old Testament. The point being, though, is I hope the whole purpose of today's conversation is to remind people that anybody can be radicalized. Christians were radicalized at one time to go kill people around Jerusalem, right, in the Crusades. Every king had to finance an army to go down there and kill some Muslims. That was sort of the thing to do at one time. We would all say, now that doesn't make sense. Why would anybody Christianity is not a religion of hate or killing, and why was it so important to drive them out of Jerusalem?
Right.
But anyhow,
it's a hot topic, my friend.
But what did these guys think? I have a feeling that they were fooled into believing that there was some greater reward. And remember this, anytime somebody believes that there's a greater reward in heaven for them, they can use that either to become Mother Teresa or to become a radical terrorist.
But, Carl, listen to this, my last point. Now, these people really are crazy, and I'm going to tell you why. Who in the heck would want to go to heaven and have 72 freaking virgins? Hey, one wife is enough down here. You want 72 in heaven? Are you crazy?
Right.
Think of all those mother-in-laws.
That's a good point. All right.
Take care, my friend.
All right, Mike. I love when Mike comes on when I fill in for Durgan, too. So that's why I gave him a long time. Larry, what's going on?
I had a thought came into my mind, and I wasn't sure if this could have other purposes or not. But when you come out of the hospital or you go to a nursing home or some other medical service has been performed that is different than just your family doctor, they'll send you a survey. They say, we want to know how we're doing, and could you fill this survey out for us? Well, say you do that, and you send it in, and everything is really nice, you had a great time, and then all of a sudden you come up with a reason why you've got to litigate against that hospital. And can they go back and look at that survey and say, well,
I think they could. I think they could.
So maybe they're just CYAing you themselves.
Well, and of course, though, the survey may be, everything was fine until 3 days later I discovered you guys left some scissors inside me. But you're right. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Okay, well, you confirmed my suspicions.
All right, Larry.
Thank you.
540-0580. Diane, you're on the air.
Hello. I am calling in regards to timeshare.
Yeah.
Is there any way of getting out of timeshare?
Is there any way? You have to sell the deed.
Yeah, right.
Good luck. Good luck.
That's the only way, huh?
I mean, you bought it, you own it, and you agreed to all these things. Yeah, bankruptcy's the other way to get out of it. So I always love when people buy timeshares. I know they work really well for some people, but you even see rich guys trying to sell their timeshare slots.
Okay, so even death doesn't get you out of it because then...
It belongs to the estate. It becomes a debt of the estate.
Right.
Now, if you want to give it to me, I'll take over the maintenance fees and just use it, right?
I would definitely do that.
Call me off the air.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, timeshares. There's an episode of South Park where they go to Aspen and they get the timeshare pitch, and they get their free lift ticket, and they get on the lift, and they're like, "These are the blue tickets. You have the green tickets. You have to go to that lift over there." And then their free timeshare ticket takes them right back up to the timeshare office and deposits them right back in the sales room. And that's the joke about timeshares, folks. They could be a good investment. They could be, and there might be times when they have been, but not always. Bob, you're on with Carl Rominger. What's going on, Bob?
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Hey, quick question for you. With all the craziness going on right now, I went and got my license to conceal.
Yep.
I live down in the Elizabethtown area, so I went to the sheriff's in Lancaster. I was just wondering, I wanted to be clear, when I pick up a gun, I know before you'd had people talk about concealing it or carrying it. There was a guy recently who was carrying it around the Bass Pro Shop, but he was wearing it on the outside. I just wanted to be clear on the laws with that.
Concealed carry, you have your permits, so you can do it anywhere you want. Open carry, there's no law prohibiting it.
Okay.
But there's no law that says you can't get in trouble for doing it either if it was perceived as being a form of disorderly conduct, etc. So Pennsylvania, there's a great website on carry law that basically says Pennsylvania is one of the problem states where it's not clear whether you have a right to carry open or not. All right?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, my friend. All right, guys, got to go. I'll be back next week. Go to RomingerLaw.com. Look me up if you need a lawyer. Always happy to serve you. Right now, I'm going to head down to Harrisburg Beer and Cigars and go smoke me a CAO La Travita. And I hope to see you there. So come on down. It's right off a Union Deposit. I'll see you guys there in about 10 minutes.